and gentlemen, namaste and a very warm welcome to all of you to the Blub World Web Talks 156th episode. In the last 155 episodes, we have talked to, interacted with nearly 3,000 plus school leaders on this very platform. In the last 155 episodes, we have tried to understand, tried to take note of opinions, ideas, innovations, and what all new is happening in the education space. So today, in the next 60 minutes that we have with you, we'll again try to know your opinion, your ideation, your innovation on how is education changing in and around you. Most importantly, before we start, just to set the rules of the game, or typically some important things to be remembered during the complete platform. It's a bilingual platform, so you can use English or Hindi, any of these two languages. Try sticking to these two, but if you want, you can use a third one, but I won't get it. So आप अंग्रेजी या हिंदी में से कोई भी भाषा इस्तेमाल कर सकते हैं. Most importantly, this is a timed platform. So once your speaking time is over, you might get muted. If you get muted, please don't get offended. It is just to finish the activity on time and to keep it crisp and entertaining. The format is pretty simple. In the first leg, we'll be discussing and in a timed format for 3 minutes each. And at the end, there'll be an open floor when you can again share your ideas or closing thoughts on the topic for today. Today we have a very interesting topic that we're going to talk about. ये दो ऐसी चीजें हैं जो एकदम साथ साथ चलती हैं. एक का आउटकम दूसरा होता है. But when you read the topic, it typically puts them against each other. And this is something that we are feeling or experiencing in our virtual classes in the complete virtual education world right now. Because teaching is right now absolutely anti of learning. Because both these processes have become independent from each other and they're not able to find that correlation that makes the whole calculation work. So let's see what our amazing speakers have to tell us about teaching versus learning. Are students actually learning? क्या ये सच में पूरा virtual world अच्छे से पढ़ाई लिखाई करवा पा रहा है या नहीं करवा पा रहा है? और अगर करवा पाया है, तो do we have a mark sheet of it, or do we know how have we performed? So thank you so much everybody once again for joining in, and today welcome all of you to the 156th episode of the Blub World Web Talks. Let me invite the first speaker for today to set the ball rolling. हमारा हर बार पहला speaker is normally somebody who comes from away from the school education space, जो वहाँ का experience जरूर लाएगा, but will give the idea or the picture of the bird's eye view. So let me invite the first speaker for today, Ms. Anju Devskar, Associate Director Admissions Outreach for Flame University, Pune, Maharashtra. Anju, over to you for the next 3 minutes. Please unmute your audio and a very warm welcome.
Thank you so much, Daksh. So, I think the teaching and learning pedagogy that is existing today, it is more about, it is not essentially student-centric, or it's rather a pedagogy where probably the format is that the one person, which is the teacher, gives the instruction and the students learn from it. I think it's pretty much time, because student today is not looking at teacher for information anymore. They are I think the profile of a student has changed in the last a decade, I would say rather, but more so in the last 5-6 years. So I think it's important that we have to learn from the traditional pedagogy and combine probably andragogy, because that is something where the teacher teaches the child the teacher also learns from a child learns from another child or student rather. So this is the culture that is very, very important to come in, because that also helps them to apply these learning in real world. If there are middle school students, they can apply it outside. If they're high school students, I think they have a very smooth transition from school education to university education. That is one part. The second part is, I think, since we're talking about teaching and learning, not teaching versus learning. So teaching is something simple, that if I'm teaching you something, the other may learn about it. But I can also teach without actually teaching, or I can also learn without anyone teaching me. So, this is something which is ideally done subconsciously, but I think consciously, if you bring that into the practice, which is the terminology that I use. I mean, it is about treating the student as an adult, and not in terms of the age alone, but kind of, that the student must be able to take responsibility of learning. So these were my views on the topic.
Thank you so much, Anjali. Let me try to summarize what you said. You started with teaching in the instructional format, where we were typically giving instruction. It was on the stage kind of a format, which right now has changed. The student has evolved. The complete ecosystem of the class has come into a different arena altogether. It has now become kind of a colosseum where there are gladiators not looking at information, but looking at a lot of competition happening within that very area. Most importantly, you talked about pedagogy and andragogy. Then you talked about learning is something that can happen, but teaching is something that has to be done. Teaching does not happen. And what right now is expected out of a teacher, that is, teaching must happen. It should become seamless. But most importantly, we have put them on a completely new arena, completely new medium that they don't know, and we ask them to perform as if it was a normal classroom. So thank you so much, Anju, for putting in this perspective and set the ball rolling for today's topic. Let me invite the next speaker for today. From this point onwards, we'll be talking to school leaders who face that everyday fight of running those classes, from small little tiny tots to those 12th class passing students who are right now very demanding, with their parents, with their relatives, with their friends, everybody looking at every single class that's happening. So welcome to the transparent school. And when we talk of the transparent school, how has the teaching learning process evolved? And most importantly, the reason for the topic is teaching absolutely versus learning, because we are trying to put the and in the middle, but I think it's right now facing loggerheads with each other. So let's have their perspective on teaching versus learning. A very warm welcome, Mrs. Jayashree Bhake, Director Principal of GH Rai Soni Vidya Niketan from Nagpur, Maharashtra. Jayashree ma'am, over to you for the next 3 minutes. Please unmute your audio, and a very warm welcome.
Yeah, thank you so much. Thank you for the question, and well said, ma'am. Teaching and learning can be a very smooth function if a teacher enters a class with a clear objective of what is a teaching objective and what is expected as a learning outcome. The moment this is very clear, every class becomes very seamless. The teacher goes into a class as a learner also. So it's not that teaching cannot happen without learning. It is that the teacher goes as a learner too, because as like ma'am rightly pointed out, teaching is also a learning process. Now, the most importantly, the teacher needs to know what is she leading up to. Is it that she's leading the class, or that she wants the children to lead their own learning? Are they on creating their own learning? If the end goals or the end objectives are clear and the focus is on learning, it would be really good. And the most importantly, if in case we can ignite the quest to learn, you are gonna have a fabulous class, a learning centric class, which the ma'am now tried to point it out. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Jayashree ma'am. You talked about the objective of teaching and learning. When you go into the class, are you very clear on the objective of it? That what is the expectation out of a teacher and the expectation out of a learner? We want every learner to be an active learner, somebody who has transformed himself. But when we go into the school ecosystem, the learner is not very active. He's rather in a passive stage, and we have to transform him into an active learner. And for that, the teacher must also think of himself as a learner. That's the phase that you have to go into when you're in the class. Most importantly, you have to let the students lead the class. And finally, if in any way you're able to ignite the quest to learn, that they ask for content, they ask for knowledge, they ask for wisdom. That's something that a teacher, that would be a kind of a magical zone where the teacher could transcend that students to. Thank you so much, Jayashree ma'am. Let me invite the next speaker for today, Mrs. Monita Bakshi, Director for Seedling Schools from Udaipur, Rajasthan. Monita ma'am, over to you for the next 3 minutes. Please unmute your audio, and a very warm welcome.
Good evening, everyone. The topic that we are deliberating today is basically wanting to show that we want to do away with the rote learning system and bring about active learning into classrooms. Now, when we want the end result to change, then we also have to change our teaching accordingly. Now, I'm going to speak on this topic in relation to early years. Firstly, due to the fact that in a lot of schools having a setup from K to 12, I see a lot of effort being put into various methodologies and teaching skills and all for higher classes, but not for the pre-primary section. Somehow this pre-primary gets neglected. Secondly, I also want to talk about how these years, if we work hard, if we work right, is going to make the whole difference, a huge difference. So to begin with, I would like to say that when a child is around 5 years of age, 90% of the brain development finishes. Yes, 90% of the brain development finishes under the process of neurogenesis, where millions of brain cells are being formed daily and connections are being made. Now, how do this neurogenesis get impacted? It gets impacted through genetics and experiences. So the quality of experiences that we are giving to our children on a daily basis, whether positive or negative, is going to impact the brain development. So a lot of brain connections that are needed for very complex, I would say higher level abilities like self-regulation, motivation, critical thinking, etc., you'll be surprised is formed at this stage. And so are we equipping our teachers, are we equipping our schools to cater to this? We think, oh, let the child grow and hum tab sikhayenge. But it doesn't happen that way. Now, these connections, if not worked on at this stage, may never happen. They may not happen even at this stage if we are not able to stimulate the brain connections. So we have to work towards getting these things moving in the right direction and not wait for children to grow up. Now, let me give you a very small and a very simple example from the pre-primary section. Is, even today, a lot of pre-primary schools are teaching children alphabet in sequence, and where children can easily say A to Z and they recognize the symbols. Yes, I write B and the child says, ma'am, this is B. I write Z and the child says it's Z, and can fluently say A to Z. But believe me, the child is not going to learn how to read, how to spell. Why? Because he has not learned the sounds. It is just a symbol with a name. Whereas a child who has been taught these symbols, these alphabet symbols in relation to their sounds and how sounds come together to make words, is the one who's going to take to reading and the one who's going to take to writing. Same thing goes for numbers. I have seen a lot of parents in schools taking pride to the fact, oh, my 5-year-old can write from 1 to 200. Oh, and can say it in one go without making any mistake. But again, the child is not going to learn math. The child has to learn that these symbols, the number symbols, 2, 3, 15, whatever, represent quantity. And that numerical system has an order and a pattern. Now, so just imagine through rote learning, what are we doing to these children? What base have been given to these children? Do you think that all the strategies that the schools would apply, all the methodologies they will work on in the higher classes are going to work? They are not. Because that is the biggest drawback of the rote learning system, is that the new information that the child gathers, he is not able to connect with the knowledge he has. Because that knowledge was not completely understood by the child and he is not able to make the connection. So how are you going to build up his knowledge? So this is a very glaring example of how a lot of us go wrong at the pre-primary stage and how we have to really gear up to bringing about a great change in our methodologies, in our pedagogy at this level. Now, a lot of fun activities are available for children at this age, through which we can bring about a lot of abilities and skills in these children, like drawing, art and craft, color and pattern arrangement, sequencing, number games, memory games, etc. And a lot of techniques can be used along with these fun activities, like we can use a lot of manipulatives, and which will lead into teaching them about patterns, problem solving, etc. We can point out the cause and effect relationship. Children love to play with water, with sand. And one day the teacher says, come on, let's mix these and see what are we going to get. Pause and let's see what they come up with. And then actually get them to do it and see. Get them to sail boats, get them to see what sinks, what floats. You don't have to tell them about buoyancy at that stage. It's just to ignite the curiosity and to see what is happening. So offer.
Thank you so much, Monica ma'am. The first 3 to 4 minutes are over, but we'll again come back to you. I think you gave in quite a lot of interesting content. So let me try to summarize what you said. You started with taking the topic in an aspect where you talked about removing rote learning from the ecosystem and bringing in a lot of what we say ecosystem-driven, application-driven learning. You talked about early childhood education, which is right now typically not being given the center stage, because we are right now focusing on the performance of the results of the board's classes. And pre-primary, as of now, is not at all a focus for anyone, because even parents are not comfortable enough in sending their children back to school. So there's not a lot of effort that's being taken. You talked about genetic growth and experiential growth that the children get during their pre-primary age, and that's what typically builds the individual. And it's not good to wait for a long time where he typically grows up, builds his own blockades, and then you try to teach him new things. So it has to happen in the pre-primary part of his life as well. And when we talk of all these evoluted higher order thinking things, have we equipped the teachers in the right way? That's actually a big problem that's being faced across schools, across cities in India, because teachers are not equipped, because we do not get the top of the pyramid talent in education. We rather get the bottom of the pyramid talent in education, and that makes one more hurdle for equipping these teachers. Finally, you talked about information knowledge connect, that a student must be taught how the information that he has with himself can be analyzed, can be put to use, can be put to application, and finally get transformed into his own knowledge or his own wisdom. Thank you so much, Monica ma'am. I think you gave in a nice perspective on teaching versus learning, because when we teach, we must understand at this point of time that it's not content or information anymore. It's much more than just content and information. Let me invite the next speaker for today, Mr. Abu Samad Thavalengal, principal of Al Amin Senior Secondary School from Mallapuram, Kerala. Abu Samad sir, over to you for the next 3 minutes. Please unmute your audio, and a very warm welcome.
A fabulous good evening to all. Most respected Mr. Dash Gao and other dignitaries and ladies and gentlemen. Really, I'm very happy in this evening time. Let me congratulate the Blub World for initiating these types of talking and for giving the chances to interact with high rank persons. Anyway, today's topic already we know the teaching and learning. I think from the topic itself, I understood teaching and topping versus teaching and learning. So I think these both are not a contrast one. Both are correlated, the two sides of same coin, teaching and learning. But I would like to share some of the dispersal meditations about this one, which I feel the teacher or learner, who is the better, or teaching or learning, which term is better? So I think I give the preference for the learner or the learning, because without the learning process, which starts from our first day of this earth, we know I'm talking about the learning and teaching process outside the classrooms. I'm a teacher, I'm working in an educational institution, but still I know from the schools or from the teachers, we learn a very little thing. But more things we learn from our parents, from the peer groups, from the nature, from the situations. So these two terms have wide meaning and wide scope. One thing it is very important, one, to create an ideal society, this teaching and learning should be happen in a very proper way. Wrong teaching, wrong learning, both are dangerous. And really, the scientific and psychological concern we have to implement and bring to this field, both in teaching and learning field. We know our mother is the first teacher. We learn our basic things from the mother, and after that from our nature we learn many things. But now we discuss this matter all in a very short manner, that in school or in the boundaries of the classrooms, to create or to increase the critical thinking and the creative thinking. I already told, in these areas, especially in the teaching areas, very scientific.
Thank you so much, Abu Samad sir. The 3 minutes were over, but we'll again try to come back to you. Let me try to summarize what you talked about. You started with learning being the priority because that's the objective of the complete process of teaching and learning. And most importantly, the learning would happen much beyond just the classroom, just beyond the pedagogy that we're putting in those four walls to typically deliver content to that student. And finally, for an ideal society, they have to work in the right direction, keeping value education in mind. So at this point, I have a question for all the speakers who are here today, that when we talk of a teacher and when we talk of a learner, we expect the learner to be an active individual who is seeking knowledge. And when we talk of a teacher, we're looking at an individual who's ready to transform himself, leave his ego, break all shackles, and be ready to be a learner himself once again. But when we have these two expectations from these two different individuals, do we give them that kind of an environment? Because when they come into this ecosystem, there are a lot of stakeholders with different expectations, with a lot of pressure coming in. So what's your opinion on how can we typically give them an environment which enables these two expectations and we're able to reach them? Over to Anju for her thoughts on this.
I thank you so much, Daksh. So in my view, I think it's very important. And if you remove the schools or colleges out, that is the real way a human being actually learns, that's the environment that you learn in. So I think the more important thing here is to understand that the education has to be based on inquiry. Okay, if you want me to learn something, I will, please, if you don't even teach me red, orange, yellow, green in my nursery, or I fail in that test, please understand, I'll definitely learn my colors. Maybe not in nursery, maybe following year, or I may just learn it somewhere, right? So the idea is that it has to be inquiry driven, number one. Number two, there has to be the concept of companion learning. If even in a grade 11 math high level class, a student asks a question and teacher may or may not be prepared for it, there should be a culture where teacher says, hey, you know what, there's a brilliant question, let's find the answer, rather than snubbing a child, which is happening right now because it's an ego game. I'm the teacher, I know everything, you're the student, you're supposed to learn from me. Whereas the matter of the fact is, students today, I think, know a little bit more than the teachers. And I'm just talking about, because it's obviously, I mean, today I'm just part of an online course which I'm doing with Flame University only. It's B2B online course, and I have students with me in the class who are probably 25, 27-year-old. I'm just going to be 50 in a couple of years. I see, and the same thing is being taught. So obviously you've got much smarter, younger lot, and it's so much fun to learn with them. It's just you have to keep your ego aside. And similarly, ask for help. So it's basically, the change is not a rule or a policy. It's changes the mindset. And if that can come in, I think there won't be these kind of clashes or the negative energy or ego in the space.
Removing the ego from the space, that's what the Gurukul system typically did to a student. First they took away your hair, your clothes, and then they finally asked you to beg for your food. वही कहीं ना कहीं Indian mythology या Indian system में से आता था, but that got removed and the ego got fed. तो जब ego को हमने इतना feed कर दिया, do we have a mechanism to remove that in the pre-primary space? Over to Monika ma'am for her thoughts on this, that what are we actually doing in the pre-primary space to remove this ego from the complete ecosystem so that education or typically transformation does not get hampered? Over to Monika ma'am.
Yeah, Daksh. So the thing is that the trainings that the teachers are undergoing, the pre-primary teachers are undergoing, caters to what we expect from the teachers today. You know, to become part of the class, become a child herself. So it's not a very difficult thing. A teacher who has decided to become a pre-school teacher knows that this is what is expected out of her. तो ego की कोई बहुत बड़ी बात है नहीं इसमें. और उसको बहुत मजा आता है कि, you know, how many people get this chance of being a kid again and enjoy themselves. You see, so I see so many times they're sitting on the floor, they're crawling, they're becoming animals, and there's no ego whatsoever. The training part itself takes care of it, and they're happy doing what they're doing. And there's nobody watching, nobody judging, because we all are doing that in the pre-primary. So ego ki baat hi nahi aati hai. Only problem is getting parents to understand what to expect in today's time from a preschool. कि 1 to 200 पढ़ाना जरूरी नहीं है, 1 to 50 भी पढ़ाएंगे, लेकिन वो समझ आना चाहिए बच्चे को. That is what needs to be changed more than the teachers.
Right. The transformation is important rather than just the curriculum. But there's one more aspect to the complete discussion. Jahan pe I would want Jayashree ma'am to come in. Ma'am talked about the ego of the teacher. या जो कंटेंट डिलीवर कर रहा है उसका एक ईगो है जिसको टैकल करने की कोशिश कर रहे हैं, या वो टीचर ऑलरेडी ट्रेंड है तो उसका ईगो शायद नहीं है. लेकिन जो बच्चे उस इकोसिस्टम से आगे बढ़ते बढ़ते ग्रो करते हैं और अपनी टीनेज में आते हैं, वो एक बड़ा सारा बैंक ऑफ ईगो लेके आते हैं अपनी सीनियर क्लासेस में. तो उसके लिए क्या ट्रांसफॉर्मेशन होना चाहिए इन द अर्ली इयर्स? ओवर टू जयश्री मैम.
Thank you, Daksh, for this nice question. Basically, I feel that teacher is like an apple seed. You do not know the amount of apples that particular seed contains. Teacher is a thought leader. Teacher, when she moves into a class, she comes in to basically understand that she cannot control. The moment she tries to control, it would clash with the ego. Even a 3-year-old child is not ready to say sorry, right? So if you're trying to control or show that you are a sage on the stage, the learning will not happen. And that's when the clashes occur. Rather, the teacher, if he or she is able to influence, create a self-belief, give a proper reason that why this particular thing has to be learned and why am I standing here as a facilitator, and make them know what will be the consequences of their learning, the ego clash will not happen. And what will happen is that every learner would be able to take his or her own responsibility of learning. And a great teacher is one who is able to learn with the child. And the moment the child realizes that, yes, my teacher is able to come down to my level and understand and do activities like me, is able to show his or her strength and weaknesses both, but when need be, is able to behave as an adult too. There's no ego clash at all. It is how we nurture these children right from the childhood, as Monita ma'am was stating, right from childhood, when a child is interacting with the teacher, there's no ego between a teacher and the child. So where is the ego getting cultivated? The moment the teacher, instead of becoming a facilitator, becomes a sage on the stage. If the teacher is there as a facilitator, he or she would be able to influence, not control the children. You influence the child, there's no ego tussle. You control the child, there surely is going to be an ego tussle. So you influence the child, you create a right belief in that person, self-belief and belief in you too. Give them proper supporting, because nowadays children need logics behind everything. So give them proper reason for why, what they are doing. And automatically they will take the responsibility of their own learning. Thank you.
Absolutely. Trying to build a balance between the curriculum and the story behind the curriculum. कि आप अगर उनको logic दे पा रहे हैं, that you're in a place that you can actually give them that kind of a time. And यहाँ पे the eternal question with Indian education system comes in, that do we have that much time to tell them the story behind the syllabus? And what would be the best way to do it in the least possible time? So whoever wants to put in this idea or any point, you can unmute yourself and you can put it out there. I think Anju wants to say something. Anju,
yeah, so I very, very appreciate Jayashree's views. And also, you know, I was just reading something which was just talking about that today, you don't have to teach the subject at any age. You have to teach the child. a teacher has a knowledge of the subject. You don't teach the subject, you teach the child, because somewhere down the line the child will know more than the teacher, which is a given fact. They, because they're on a journey and their world is much different than the generations earlier. So I think it's very important for us to focus within the school that we're teaching a child and they become self-directed learners, and then obviously there's no ego, there is no this thing, there's a lot of companion learning and teaching that happens. So again, it kind of revolves around the mindset of this change that we are talking about.
Daksh, in case you permit me.
Please.
Thank you, ma'am. Anju ma'am, what like she stated is that information is available everywhere. Teachers not there to give an information. The moment the teacher realizes this, she has ample of time to teach them life lessons.
Absolutely.
And these life lessons are coming in as an experiential learning for the children with day-to-day interaction that she has with the child. So it's about just igniting the curiosity. That's what the teacher needs to do. The quest of learning has to be ignited by the teacher. Rest all takes its place. Thank you.
And also, that we have to understand school is for children. It's my right to come and make mistakes, learn, fail, redo, reskill. This is my right. I can't be labeled for failing twice. Failing twice as in I failed in an activity or to do an assignment. It's my job, it's my right. So that is where the whole thing comes in, where you make them responsible, give them their own remote control. We are not controlling them, you just kind of influence them. What Jesh, I was really impressed by that thought. I think that is the key to building a good relationship where the environment only becomes the teacher. Nobody has to be the teacher. The culture is such that the environment only becomes the teacher.
Absolutely. From lessons for a good life to life lessons.
Absolutely.
वो जो transformation है, वो जल्दी हो जाए. This is something that we all expect from the ecosystem or the environment. But what we experience right now with the schools going to open in some states where already the preparations have begun, or some places they've already opened up, when students will come back with all these restrictions in place, with all this social distancing in place, how do you think will we be able to reignite that environment? And when we talk of senior classes where the syllabus is important, where the storytelling takes a backseat, where you don't have the time to really tell them the logic behind it, how would teaching resume? And most importantly, will learning as well resume? So I think, Monica ma'am, if you can share some thoughts on this, what is going to happen when these classes open up and you don't have that much amount of time to set the tone once again? How would you fast pace it?
Daksh, I'm going to turn into a child and learn what is going to happen. That will be the easiest way out, believe me, because I don't know what is really going to happen. So much time has passed, but what I definitely do see when I see children, meet them, talk to parents, is that children are dying to come back to school. They are dying. There was a time where they were looking out Chutti Ka Bhoga and all that, but now they're dying to come back. So I'm sure when they come to a place that they're wanting to come back, learning is going to happen. They're going to love it. They're going to realize the importance of school, which they were not probably before the lockdown. So I am hoping on that. And as we are discussing, I'm turning into a child and waiting and going to see kya hone wala hai. That's the way
Absolutely. मिल जाए तो मिट्टी है, खो जाए तो सोना है. तो स्कूल अब खो गया था, तो उसी criticality.
खुलेगा फिर ही पता चलेगा क्या हो रहा है. That way.
Absolutely. But there's one more thing that I think should be considered while we talk on this topic of education, teaching versus learning, is right now a teacher transformed himself for a platform where he rather became quite much of an entertainer. How would we be able to establish his values in the classroom, or will we be expecting all the value education to again come from home? Because when we talk of the Indian ethics or the Indian culture, there is a lot of respect that needs to be taught. But that respect is what builds these small little walls of control in the classroom. So Jayashree ma'am, your thoughts on how would we typically be tackling values in the class that opens up?
Thank you, Daksh. Let me tell you that I have already experienced the reopening of the school. Last December, January, February too, we had our school functioning from grade 8 to grade 12. And currently, I am functioning with grade 8 to grade 12. And believe me, the first and foremost thing which we need to realize is that learning is not restricted to classroom. The moment we realize this, we find that there's ample of time to teach the children. And not necessarily that values come from home only, because with the nuclear family, that also coming to the school itself. So that is again something which we have to do. The time now that we got to learn the technology, the teachers have been well equipped with it. So why not use this technology for the additional extension of the learning happening? So as in case they, when they're coming to the school, they are doing the content based things, right? But with content, they are able to do certain things which are equipping them for their life lessons too. And what rather otherwise information has to be generated that can be shared through technology. So yes, I have been experiencing this. Children have been dying to come to the school, but there are still a lot of students who feel कि घर में रह के exam देना ज़्यादा easy है.
Absolutely.
So,
Giving examination from home या exam
yeah,
on
yeah,
demand, उसके अंदर वो बच्चे ज़्यादा comfortable हो गए, वो comfort zone मुझसे
absolutely.
टूटेगा.
So the days of the exam, they are all absent. But then when they have classes, they are there back. So value education और जरूरी है.
Absolutely. Anju ma'am, what's your experience, because you come from the higher education space? वहाँ तो बच्चे वापस आके ज़्यादा खुश होंगे ही. But when you see this complete, एक आप कह सकते हैं एक black spot थोड़े समय के लिए, learning black spot जिसको आप कह सकते हैं, क्या उसका फर्क actually आना है बच्चे के transition पे या नहीं आएगा?
So I just want to bring attention to one thing. Actually, whatever we all did, I mean, max 90% of what I've seen around, it was, we were doing online teaching, but it was not actually that we had an alternative education system. We just moved remotely. Nothing else changed. It was not some online education of the sorts as typically described in probably university levels and all. It was just that you started teaching remotely. Usme, there were some advantages that we could have classes at comfortable time. Disadvantages of somebody who's not attended a class because of some serious issue, because socially also a lot of impact was there, which was affecting many homes. So those were the advantages. Disadvantages were that the structure kind of just diluted, and I think teachers were doing their job very good. Parents were having a tough time, because to have a student go home in a formal environment is like their job. Like, I go to my office, my child goes to his school, but now I'm going to my office because I'm getting paid for it. Child ke liye to main pay kar rahi hu aur wo kar bhi nahi raha. There were multiple questions, and that's where not paying fee and the whole rigmarole of challenges that the schools faced. So coming to the shift that's going to happen, it didn't kind of really impact the education as much in the university standpoint, from the university standpoint. But yes, there were other impacts, social impacts. I think that is because school may you've studied your 16 years of your schooling years, and after that you've come to college, you feel little liberated, you're treated as an adult, you have certain amount of freedom, and they were just taken away. So you were back at home. So I think social emotional impacts were little more difficult for us to understand. Challenges not directly related to values, but yes, it had a impact from that aspect on the university student life. And I'm sure even some of the seniors classes also, maybe 10th 11th 12th onward.
Social emotional impact काफी बड़ा था. In the pre-primary space, there's something that right now a lot of people are talking about. इस जब इतने सारे बच्चे साथ में होते थे तो हर्ड इम्यूनिटी बिल्ट हो जाती थी, और वो एक ऐसी उम्र होती थी जिसके अंदर आपका शरीर रोबस्ट हो जाता था. लेकिन अब ये इतने समय से सब घर पे थे, ये बच्चे जब वापस आएंगे तब वापस से छोटे छोटे जुकाम बुखार होना शुरू होंगे. So what is your what are typically, I think Monica ma'am will rather answer it in the right way, कि जब ये वापस आएंगे तो वो हर्ड इम्यूनिटी का इन्हें अपॉर्चुनिटी मिलेगा, या ये सारे उन मास्क में वेल रहेंगे और जीवन भर के लिए कोई एक छोटी कमी अपने शरीर में लेके बड़े हो जाएंगे? Is that going to be the case, or you think they'll again find some space to build their immunity?
That's the thing is that as we are discussing, कि online जाने से the child who's going to college or university may not be impacted badly. But if I see the whole scenario, the worst affected are the toddlers, because as rightly pointed out, unka social emotional quotient to khatam hai. And and as I pointed out in my talk, that this is the age where they are developing, and this is the age where they need to interact. And believe me, this is a myth that on online platform they are creating ruckus or anything. They are very well behaved. It is the teachers who have to know how to reach them, how to give instructions, and how to get them to listen to the instructions. So I'm looking forward to their coming back and getting back to their usual self. It will take some time because they've already missed out on a very important phase of their life. And but we'll work harder to give them back what they've missed out.
At this point, when we are nearly at the conclusion of the talk, I would rather ask a very simple question from all of you. What would be the 3 skills that you would want your teachers to have when they resume these classes for toddlers and for senior classes? And most importantly, when you give your opinion, tell us an idea that you are using within your institution to develop or rather inculcate these 3 skills in the teachers that you have, because we have been training them, that we all know. But what do you think right now are the 3 most important skills that every teacher must have while he comes back to the classroom? Over to Jayashree, ma'am.
More than skills, I feel some qualities has to be taken up. As regards toddlers, a lot of patience. So is the case with the middle school and high school children, because they are so used to staying at home, sitting, lying down and studying, munching in between. They did not have a proper time span for 1.5 years now. So yes, a lot of patience with them is required. Technologically, now the teachers have become quite sound. So I don't think that skill is something which they have to, deliberate more on into. But lots and lots of love and patience and understanding of the children. Emotional stability of the teacher again has to be worked out, because somewhere even the teacher was at home in her or own comfort zone teaching. So she has to again shirk off that comfort and come back to the routine. So yes, a social emotional development of the teacher is also important. So once with the emotional stability, she would be able to understand the person in front. So yes, patience, tolerance, social stability. Thank you.
I think a lot of empathy needs to be developed in the teachers that we have, so that they can tackle these children better, because यहाँ पे observation of शायद ज़्यादा important हो जाएगा than going into delivery or content delivery, because आपका जो student वापस आया है वो transformed है emotionally, socially, and at this point it's more important to observe and understand rather than just start with your regular daily life. Over to Monica ma'am on her thoughts on 3 qualities or 3 skills that you think would be a must for every teacher to be equipped while he comes back to the class.
Jayashree ma'am said it all literally. And I would like to add the fun element, because a lot will need to be covered up, especially with the pre-primary and the primary students. So in that context, the syllabi is going to go wider. A lot of things that were expected from a child coming to a new class probably will go missing. So we have to, speed up a little with our syllabi. So when we are teaching our children, the teachers have to be trained to add a lot more fun elements, so that the child learns it fast and can move ahead quickly. So definitely, a happy environment, a fun environment, and catering to the emotional needs of the children has to be there. The teachers have to teach with that mindset. ये 3 चीजें चाहिए.
Right. We have to typically build a big open space now for these children, जहाँ पे उनको भी अपना expression का zone हो and teacher के पास observation का time हो. Anju ma'am, over to you on these 3 important critical skills that you think. Why am I focusing on the skill element of it is very simple. Some of these things we know by our common sense. As an expert, what do you think that what are the skills that would be critical?
So I think, we are expecting students to be proactive. Today, nobody can say what we can't plan for even 5th day from now. Okay. So, and these are adults who are going to make very important decisions in their life. So, we're expecting students, and, it has helped us, because not now, maybe 5 years back, Flame actually moved from traditional pedagogy to andragogical way of teaching and learning. So everybody is a teacher, everybody is a learner. So those relationships were set, so just went on remote, and so basically we're looking at having students to be a little more proactive, creative, who can actually constantly change to this the very fast change. That's number one. Number two is, I think everything has to become immersive in nature. I must be able to experience everything that I learn. I must be able to experience, and that kind of brings in the skills of an entrepreneurial mindset, because today we're dealing with the adults. So it's not about the employability that we're talking anymore. We're talking about earnability factor. You should be able to earn your living, be economically relevant in the society. So I think from higher education perspective, it's a very, very big field for us to cover. But yes, being an international standard university, so we were able to incorporate those elements as well.
I think you put it in the right sense in the last two words that you used, being economically relevant. I think ये एक ऐसी चीज है जो हर किसी की एक्सपेक्टेशन होती है कहीं when you go to higher education, when you even start education start करते ही केवल इकोनॉमिक रेलेवेंस उसके साथ में जुड़ जाता है और वो साथ में उसकी पूरी एजुकेशन ट्रैजेक्टरी में साथ में जीता रहता है. But we also need to understand and think on points that go beyond just this economic relevance. Because as individuals, we're finally creating a society, not just a big business that works on money.
Absolutely.
So I think it was a discussion that typically talked about transforming teaching into something that transforms individuals on not only on content, but taking them to wisdom. As we do it in all the Blub World Web Talks, when we conclude, we put out a small little story of a teenager in front of all of you that we do every single month. We try to find teens globally who are doing amazingly well and trying to share their stories with many more teens. So one such story for all of you today is about two teenagers who did not have the economic relevance or economic stability to buy their tickets from their hometown to a metro city in India. But just out of purely their grit, their passion for something, they kept doing stuff, got themselves selected into a small little dance institute, learned a dance form there, and from there, they were able to buy tickets to a place that is known as the Mecca of their own dance form, and they became India's first danseurs. And these were the two Indian male ballet dancers who right now are living in Paris and still were not very economically stable, but kept on doing what they wanted to do on the basis of scholarships, on the basis of support that they got from people. We had Dipesh Verma and Bobby Roy, who are right now known as India's first two danseurs. That's what we do every month, trying to find stories of teams who are doing amazingly well and sharing their stories with many more teams. Around a year back, we started working on an idea to bring all these amazing teenagers together and to build the world's biggest and first parliament of teenagers. So we invite you, schools, school leaders, teachers, everyone to be a part of the World Teen Parliament, give students the opportunity to typically build a world that they dream of. And most importantly, the World Teen Parliament is a free, not-for-profit initiative. So most importantly, remember, try to give them the opportunity. The World Teen Parliament will be funding them, supporting them, and mentoring them to become the leaders of tomorrow. We're thankful to UNESCO New Delhi office, UNESCO MGIEP for supporting us. And a big thank you to all the teachers, students, parents, and school leaders who are here today for this amazing talk. I hope you enjoyed the last 60 minutes. If you did, and if you want to do the future sessions, you can open your audio, say a big yes, and thank you so much for being a part of the Blub World Web Talks 156th episode. Thank you.
Absolutely. Thank you, Daksh.
Thank you, Daksh. Thank you, everyone.
Daksh, this is the
Monica.
second time
Thanks,
I have
Jayashree.
visited.
Lovely to meet you.
Thank you. Pleasure has been as Anju ma'am and Monica ma'am. Daksh, I've been here the second time, and thank you for inviting me again. And I would love to be a part of it. Thank you. God bless you. Wonderful interacting with all of you all.
Thank you so much, Daksh. You're always amazing and very genuine and real. So that's how we land up here every time. Thank you so much.
Thank you so much.
Thank you.